Terrace and the demolition of it. And we're also going to be talking about voting. Uh, Tomorrow is the day. If you haven't voted, you need to really get out and vote. I'm quite sure that we are not running nowhere near where we should be with the number of people voting. However, we got to raise that. We have to get out and vote. Too many times we hear one complain about the elected officials, but yet now we don't get out and vote. And a lot of times individuals get to the point whereby you elect a person and then that's all. You know, we need to start following the individuals and how they are serving you, the people. Some individuals feel that the votes are needed to elect them, and once they're in office, they do what they feel is right, or they do what other people influence them to do, as opposed to what is in the best interest of you today. When we talk about our city, we're talking about what impact and what affects us. And in doing so, we have to remember that the only way we can have an influence on what is done on our behalf is to get out and vote. And once we vote, look at how this person is representing the people, and if they're working for the benefit of each and every citizen that for whom they are sworn to serve. Today we're going to talk about what's happening around and in the city. You know, feel free to call in if you choose to interject any comments to the subjects that we were talking about, and that number is area code 409-982-0247. And as in all what we do here at the Breeze, we need to remind our viewers and everyone that the views and opinion that are expressed on this radio station by the host, guests, or callers are strictly those views of the individuals and not necessarily the views of the station or its management. And once again, that's the Breeze, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. Now, excuse me, what's happening? The latest thing that I feel is happening that should impact on you, the citizens, is what's happening with this housing authority. We all know that the housing authority has been under investigation for some time. They have also been made to pay fines or reimburse money back to the Housing and Urban Department. But the latest episode, I feel, is something that you as citizens should be aware of and should be concerned with. Approximately, I would say over 2 years ago, the council and citizens here in our city was being briefed on what will happen to Carver Terrace, the public housing on the west side. And all the information received was always stating that Carver Terrace will be demolished, and that area will be left green, and it will become a buffer zone between the refinery and residents on the west side. And that there will be another housing project that will be built so that the residents of Carver Terrace can be relocated. This had been told to council, and it was told in an open meeting, which means it was told to our citizens, and this is the plan. And the housing authority, as always, stated we're going to provide housing for our low to moderate income individuals. And that is the theme. And I call it a theme because that is what you always hear. But it's one of those situations is what you hear is what you get. And once again, we have to now look at who's going to protect us and ensure these things happen. And once again, we turn to our elected officials. So the background here has been set. Your elected official has been told by the housing authority and individuals that we are soliciting money from the federal government to demolish the Carver Terrace housing complex. We're also seeking money to build another housing complex that will be able to house the individuals that we will relocate from Carver Terrace. Now, this is the purpose for soliciting money from the federal government. This is the plan. This is a plan they tell the citizens here in the city. And this is what the citizens can expect to happen. Now, let's talk about how things are done and how things work out. Once the money was requested for the purpose of demolishing Carver Terrace and building affordable housing to relocate the residents living there, the housing authority selected a developer. The developer came before council and requested that council approve of allowing them to apply for tax credits for housing to replace or relocate the residents of Carver Terrace and Lincoln Square Townhouse. You talk, at that time, the number of units between those two complexes were 104. The initial request to council was for tax credit in order to build 320 units. And the question by some council members was, you know, why are we building that big of a complex when you're only relocating 104 units? Well, the reply was they needed more because they had people on the housing list. So the number eventually was reduced to about 304, I think it is now. So council approved tax credits. And the developer applied for tax credit to build the housing that will serve as a place to relocate the individuals they move out of Carver Terrace to new locations. All's well, it's looking good, everything moving on track. Now, our housing authority then says now we can go on and operate. So, if one questions why the housing authority is being investigated, evidently someone needs to look into their actions and question what are they thinking about? What are they doing? Why are these actions occurring? And the actions I'm talking about is once the money has been approved and allocated to demolish Carver Terrace, the housing authority makes the request for the funds to be released to demolish it. Now, the first question would come to my mind and the average citizen's mind is, if you told us that you're going to build another low to moderate income housing complex here in the city, which was brought out in numerous meetings and in the media, is that we are overly stocked, or we have more than our share of low to moderate income housing here in our city of Port Arthur. Well, they actually started moving the individuals out of Carver Terrace. And now Carver Terrace has no residents. So Carver Terrace has no residents. So now it's time to demolish this and let it become a green area, a buffer between the refinery and the residents on the west side. The housing authority decided that they would sell the property. So they solicited bids to sell the property. The line is, if it's going to be a green space, it's going to be vacant, and it's going to act as a buffer zone. Why would anybody purchase the property? Well, true to form, they solicited bid, and there was a company that answered the bid and chose to buy the property. However, the problem became that the interested party did not choose to have a contract where the property was supposed to stay vacant, and that they could not use it for no purpose. Now that makes a lot of sense to me. Why would anybody want to buy property that they can't do nothing with? Well, the fact of the matter is, within the solicitation bid, the housing authority accidentally, now I say accidentally because I give people the benefit of the doubt, but I don't see how you can accidentally leave out that you're selling the property for this amount of money, and yet you don't tell the individual in the contract that the property must remain vacant eternally. So I think they made an accident. Based on their actions and how they operate, I say it with all sincerity that giving them the benefit of the doubt, but knowing better, they didn't accidentally leave it out. Well, when the housing authority HUD environmentalists found out about it, true to form, that threw a monkey wrench into the whole deal, because this individual said basically that if you're going to sell the property, then there are certain environmental issues that need to be taken care of. Because if you do not, then you will put in anyone at risk who enter into this area once it's been demolished. Another question would be, if you sell the property and you don't do the environmentals, then that says this person is planning on doing something with the property. So faced with the environmental issues, this company decided to withdraw its bid for purchasing the property. So now the housing authority thinks that this person's decision has created a negative impact, a significant impact on our city. And it states the Edison Square housing project for elderly. Now, once again, let's take a look at the housing authority rationale. The housing authority says that if they demolish Carver Terrace and they leave it as a green space and a buffer zone, that is, just fence it in so no one can go into the area, that's going to be an impact on the city. I don't see how it's going to be an impact on the city when, once again, all you're doing is ensuring that there are no longer residents located in the close proximity of one of our refineries. That can't hurt the city. That can't hurt the citizens. That's good. That's what we wanted. We wanted to separate industry from residents. So a negative impact? I don't think so. But that was one of the reasons given by the housing authority that the withdrawal of this bid has caused. Now let's move to the Edison Square. The Edison Square for the elderly, because of the residents' opposition to Edison Square, they were able to prevent that housing complex from being built in their neighborhood. And that's a done deal. Unless this is brought back and start from the beginning about building it in that area, it's a dead issue. And I'm quite sure if someone decides to build any type housing complex in that area where that elementary school is located, they're going to meet the same resistance and end up with the same results. Therefore, how can one say this is impacting on a project that has been voted down, a project that because of the corruption involved with trying to force it onto these residents cost the other citizens of our city $17,000. A lawyer will pay $17,000 to try to prove that this development was in accordance to the law. And it wasn't. That's why it was defeated. That's why the decision made by some members of council was reversed. And all of this was in conjunction with trying to put a housing complex within a neighborhood where residents chose not to want it, which is the rights of everybody. And that's why they had the laws in place to protect the rights of citizens, as well as developers, as well as cities. We have laws. And in this case, the law clearly stated, that they did not have enough support. And there was enough opposition to prevent it. But the city lost $17,000 with the housing authority. Now, do you think the housing authority reimbursed the city? No. And since the housing authority is not an entity within the city, I don't see why any council member or elected official with the city will jeopardize taxpayers' dollars to support an entity that is involved with investigation because of their practice and the way they do business. It makes you say, really? But that was the explanation given on the impact of the environmental ladies' input and why the bid was withdrawn. So, when that surfaced here in our city, one have to ask oneself, if the housing authority told the citizens and the elected official that we are going to build a new housing complex for the purpose, the main purpose of having a place so that we can relocate these residents we finna move. And now all of the residents are gone. So what is the purpose of the housing complex now being built on 365? What is its true purpose? The tax credits that the city council approves for the developer to apply for, is it for that purpose? With that in mind, we're going to take a 3-minute break. Once again, you listen to The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. If you feel like commenting on what's happening, and we're talking about the Port Arthur Housing Authority and its dealings with the Carver Terrace housing, as well as the new housing they're building on 365 ParkCentral, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Once again, it's your city. You're back with The Breeze. Once again, we're talking about our city, and we're talking about the housing authority and what they have basically informed our citizens here in the city and also our elected official on what their plans are for housing through, within our city. And true to form, what they say they will do and what they're doing is two different things. And we as citizens, we have to understand how this impact on us, and we'll get to that after the latter part. But we talked about one, the housing authority saying that they had solicited funds to demolish Carver Terrace, and once it's demolished, they were going to leave it a green space. Well, they were awarded funds. However, they were trying to sell the property, and that in itself does not support what they had informed the citizens and the elected official. What they informed us was that that area will remain vacant in a green spot because it will separate the refinery from the citizens on the west side. Now, when we took the break, we had moved on to the other part of that plan that they had briefed everyone on, was that we will build housing so that we can relocate these individuals. And when we left, I stated that all of the residents in Carver Terrace have been moved, and they were moved in the form of given vouchers. These vouchers allow the residents to go and get housing in other parts of our city, and also outside of our city. And to no surprise, some of the residents elected to take it elsewhere, outside the city, to another city. So in essence, when the housing authorities stated that they were going to build housing so they could relocate these residents, which means our residents would have still been in our city, they took actions that in essence allowed us to lose residents. Everyone talking about our decline in population and what we need to do to bring residents to our city. The housing authority actions have allowed residents to leave our city. And for the purpose for which they told us they were going to do, but build them new and affordable housing. So, if you've already moved all of the residents out, why do we need ParkCentral? Why do we need the housing complex that is being built off 365? It's hard to justify that. It's also hard to imagine a housing authority coming before council and telling council that they need to build this housing so that they can relocate people. Then at the same time, the developer come before council and request tax credit to build the housing for which the housing authority has requested for the purpose of relocating our citizens. And in reality, that is not the case. Now, what one can draw from this, one can easily look at this whole situation and say, the housing on 365 was not ever considered to be used for Carver Terrace. It was another way of getting another low to moderate income housing complex here within our city. And because we awarded or approved the developers' request to apply for tax credits, that created even a greater problem, because we had almost 5 times the average tax credit awarded for low to moderate income housing here in the state of Texas. But now we gave additional tax, well, we approved the request for additional tax credit based on the fact that we were told this is to help provide housing for our residents that were living in substandard housing. Well, for some reason, just like the housing authority came before our elected official and requested their support in this project, I feel that the elected officials have a responsibility to citizens to get the housing authority back before them and explain to them why you have not adhered to what you told us. Why are you trying to sell this land and not keep it a green space? Why did you ask for our approval for tax credits for your developer for the purpose of building housing for these residents, when in fact you had a plan to move those residents out before the housing complex was completed? It's time that the elected officials here in our city stand up and let the housing authority know that we don't mind having low to moderate income housing to provide for our citizens who are in need, but we refuse to be the low-income housing metro for the United States. And why? That leads us to this last part of this puzzle. Our low to moderate income housing, once we build so many, what you're actually doing is you're reducing the number of homeowners. You're reducing the number of people living in houses, single-family homes, which reduces your tax base for revenue. When you look at it, either your city is going to be ran in a business form so that all citizens can benefit, or it could be ran in a form in which only few people are benefited. And those people benefited are the people that are connected to these type of dealings. They're the only ones benefiting from it. The city is not benefited from it. We're losing that tax base. And without that tax base, it's hard for us to really get the revenue that we need in order for our city to operate. That revenue being money to fix streets, to repair water lines. We're losing this revenue because we have an entity that is doing just the opposite of what one needs to do in order to build a good tax base. In order to build that tax base, we need rooftops. We need property owners. There's also the thought that they also have the Section 8 part of their program over there in housing, in which we have rental property that is decent, well maintained, well kept. If that property was to be rented, then the tax being paid on it, the city has the tax base. Once the renter is in the home, now we selling them water, okay? We getting the taxes from the electricity and the gas that they use. But if the property is unoccupied, all you receive is taxes, which reduces our revenue. Now, let's talk about the housing on 365. 365 is commercial. There is a higher tax than residential property. So, if we're going to award tax credit where we will start receiving less for the property taxes, why we give up our highest land value for this purpose? So, one, to have allowed tax credit for property of 365, we, the citizens, took a hit with the property tax we could have obtained from any other business or project that could have been built on that property. We could have gotten a lot more taxes, okay? So, we look at one, the tax base. Then, we take a look at why should we low to moderate income housing complex. I truly believe that the housing authority And whomever was aware of this knew that the council would not have approved tax credit for any more lower income housing in our city. And the reason being we had enough for a city our size. So there's was not a need. If we had citizens who could not wait, then, and they qualified, if housing became available elsewhere, they could have relocated to the housing. That's what people are doing to our city. Housing is available, so they come into our city. Okay? So, once again, do we want to be able to provide low and moderate income housing for our citizens and residents of Port Arthur who are in need, or do we want to provide low and moderate income housing for anybody within the United States that is in need? We have to really look at this. You have to understand the negative of having an extraordinary amount of public housing. And see, there are certain elected officials and there are certain individuals, the first words out their mouths are, we need housing. We need housing. Well, those same individuals are the individuals that's not looking at the housing list. Because they saying we need, but they don't even understand the fact that you don't control who gets it. So if you can't control who gets it, how can you feel comfortable that if you provided it, that your resident will get it? And in this particular case, dealing with the housing authority, I can assure you that a resident of Port Arthur will not get preference over another resident who qualified for housing. They will go on that list accordingly. And they will be given housing in accordance with that. So this is not nothing that the housing authority is doing for Port Arthur. If you look at it and understand all of the facts that are involved, you figure that this housing authority has done a disservice to our city more than it has helped our city, because what they do, that's just providing low moderate income housing for individuals who qualify, not necessarily based on your city. Because it's located here in the city of Port Arthur doesn't mean that it only deals with our residents. But they will try to make it seem like this is for Port Arthur. We're doing this for Port Arthur. Well, sometimes we have to really take a look at what someone is saying and what is actually happening. And with that, I want to remind all listeners that you're listening to the Breeze KSLP 96.9 on the FM. And if you choose to make any comments about the housing authority and what it's putting out to our citizens and our elected officials as opposed to what they're actually doing, please feel free to call in at area code 409-982-0247. And with that, we're going to take a 2-minute break and we'll be right back. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Once again, you're listening to It's Your City with Harold Doucet. Once again, you're back with It's Your City with Harold Doucet. And we're talking about Port Arthur Housing Authority and what they have informed the citizens and our elected officials as their plans for the demolition of Carver Terrace and relocating this residence out to a new housing complex that is being built on Highway 65. And before we move on, I'd like to make the announcement that the Breeze radio station would like to thank Energy for their $1,000 contribution in supporting our effort to purchase a replacement transmitter that would help the Breeze radio station on the air. To support this worthwhile project, please forward your contribution to the Breeze Radio, P.O. Box 703, Port Arthur, Texas 77640. That's dollars for distance. This is Truth and Lending Corporation. Is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation wherein your contribution is tax deductible. So, if you want to increase your tax return, make a worthwhile contribution and help the Breeze. And once again, it's all about keeping the citizens informed here in the city of Port Arthur. And, you know, being it's your city and I discuss a lot of topics, you know, sometimes I could get to where I take the studio for granted. But to tell you the truth, it serves the citizens here in our city by informing them of all type of events and what's happening here within the city. It's your city radio station, because the topics are not limited to nothing. And everything that comes from the Breeze is either in the form of information that you should be aware of, and in most cases, you will not hear it, but hear on the Breeze Radio. And when you're not listening to what's happening in the city, you can lay back, kick back, and listen to the music and the different programs that we provide here on the Breeze Radio. Now, back to the Housing Authority and what they're saying as opposed to what they're doing. And when we left, we were talking about the housing complex on 365, the fact that you don't have any residents in Carver Terrace, so one would now question the need for that housing, you know. And someone always tells citizens, we have a lot of people on the list. Well, I can assure anybody that if we were to build housing right now and put everybody on that list in housing, I will say that the day the last person goes into housing from that list, that will put people on the list again. So, to try to use people on the list as an excuse to keep flooding the city with housing complex should be non-acceptable. It should be non-acceptable to our citizens as well as our elected officials. And I can assure you the elected officials from all the meetings I've attended, they're not in favor of continuing to flood our city with low to moderate income housing complexes, and they won't approve tax credit. But we have been given an example today of what the Housing Authority has done to get around that. They've elected to tell the council and the citizens, we're going to do this. And when the money is approved, now we're going to do that. And one do not have to wonder why the Housing Authority is under investigation. with some of the actions, you know, they're lucky that someone's not wearing stainless steel bracelets, you know, and talking from the cage. But that is for those who are in a position to take appropriate action. And I'm quite sure that all good will come to those who deserve it. So we'll just watch and see. But eventually the housing authority should be at least looking out for the best interests of our city when dealing with housing matter, for the mere reason that they are located within our city. And being located within our city, they should feel a special interest in making sure that everything they do is in the best interest of the citizens of Port Arthur and not their own agenda. But you know, that's what's going on in the area of that. Before we come to a close today, I want to talk about voting. And what I described to you today about what happened. Colin, you on the air?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I think I heard you mention earlier regarding the housing authority deal that the city was involved in this to the tune of some $7,000 to pay an attorney to represent the housing authority in the issue against the citizens in the Edison project. Did you say that the city has not recovered that expense? Because it lends one the question to ask, well, why was the city involved in it in the first place? How did the city get involved in being involved in the housing authority problem when the housing authority is one in its own entity? And for the city to represent them with an attorney that the city paid for against the citizens. I guess the other point would be that since the city lost that, I guess, because the citizens won that issue, where now the city has not been reimbursed for that expense. Can you shed some light on that? Because that's pretty interesting.
Okay, caller. I hear you, and I can give you a little background on it. Thank you for calling.
I'll hang up and listen, but if you need me to hang on, I'll hang on because I have a couple other questions. But
well, if you want to hang on, that's fine too.
Okay.
But I will address the costs for the attorney in defending or representing the city. What happened in that was that the city is the one that handles the zoning requests for rezoning and approval. And there's a certain procedure in the state of Texas law whereby if 20% or more of the residents oppose an issue, then it takes a supermajority of council to approve it. And basically what happened was the zoning commission sent the resolution up to council informing council that, you know, you need supermajority or 75% of your members to vote for this in order to approve it. And at which time council knew that they did not have 75% or supermajority to support it, so they tabled it.
Mm-hmm.
As it turned out, it was probably an effort to delay it so that they could go back and find a way of getting around it. And in turn, what was done was the developer sent someone out to talk to the people who had opposed it. And no one knows what was said, but it's clearly was something done that was in violation of the law because it's not being done by the zoning commission. This is being done between the developer and so when it came back before council, it still needs the 75% or supermajority. Well, council, the certain members of council argued the fact that they didn't see anything wrong with accepting these people changing their mind. However, that is not how the process works. The council cannot decide on any zoning issue unless it has first been approved by the zoning commission board. And in that case, that's to include the letter. The city attorney advised the council not to accept the letter. But the certain council members who obviously had discussed it prior to and decided that they were going to accept the letter and approve it. Well, they did. Therefore, the citizens now brought suit upon the city. So, yes, it started out as a housing issue with the zoning, but when the city elected to take actions that were basically violating the law and going against the citizen says, wait a minute, no, we're gonna sue. So it went to court, but because it had not been before the zoning board and commission here at the city level, the judge referred it back. Well, when it got back, when they had the hearing, once again, this same lawyer the city hired to represent them at the trial, they brought the lawyer back down for the meeting. And the board listened to everything of what the law said. The board reversed council decision, which prevented those housing complexes to be built at Addison Square. Now, the end result is that the taxpayers paid $17,000. It was $10,000 for the representation that they had when they went to the court to have the judge to say that it needs to be done back at our level first before it could come to him. And he didn't dismiss it, he just discontinued it, saying, well, you need to go there, and if that don't work out, come on back to me. Well, they brought the lawyer back down again, and the lawyer ended up charging an additional $7,000. So basically, the city paid $17,000 taxpayers' money to try to defend certain council members acting outside of their legal bounds and authority.
Wow.
And because of the fact that the city attorney advised them not to accept the letter, it didn't say very much for them. They were able to learn a lesson at a very small cost, because had the citizens had the money to get an attorney, the citizens could have then went and sued each individual member who voted for that, simply because they was acting outside their jurisdiction of authority. So therefore, the citizens just let it go because you're not going to do it, so okay, we'll let it go at that. But hopefully those council members understand now that council makes decisions basically with where they have the authority, but where there is state and federal laws that applies, you cannot supersede those laws, and therefore, in this case, they superseded them and they lost.
Well,
And
let
it
me ask
cost
you this very quick.
$17,000.
Is there a deal, a statute of limitation or something like that? Because what I heard, I'm not sure, that the attorney who won the case against the city of the favored citizen, they have requested payment also. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
Well, I heard the same thing. I haven't verified it, but I know for a fact that there was a request by the attorney that he be paid his fees that he charged for representing the citizens.
Is that a legal footing for the citizens or that attorney to go back at the city for?
To tell you the truth, you know, it's one of those where you have to look at precedents and things that are no-brainer. Normally, if you go to court and you lose, then you know automatically you pay the cost of attorneys and stuff. But you know, I think the city's stance is that you know this was not decided in the court, you know, and the judge did not render a decision in the court, you know, so therefore, you know, we didn't lose a case in the court. You know, they lost the court, they lost it at the board. But once again, you know, it's one of those things whereby under the situation, then the attorney should be paid because, you know, it was because of the actions of few council members that caused the citizens to get that attorney, and that attorney to spend his time to go to court the first time. And for the fact that at the end, in the end, they were proven wrong, which means that had the case been heard, they'd have been proven wrong.
Well, now, some of what I heard you say earlier, as I was just getting in the listening area, driving in the listening area, mentioned about the housing authority and Carver Terrace. It seems that these folks who are involved in the housing project, that's got the city involved in the housing project, is now have the city involved in the Carver Terrace project again. What is going on? Should the city still be involved in issues with the housing authority, where the housing authority is supposed to be a separate entity from the city? I only understood that at one point the mayor is supposed to appoint the people to that board, and some of the same kind of problems are existing in each one of these issues that's causing the city to maybe get into litigation for possible lawsuits. Are you aware of any of that, or am I just putting things together that maybe shouldn't be?
Well, to tell you the truth, you know, that's something that if someone looked into, they will definitely find improprieties, for the simple reason that.
Wait a minute, you say impropriety, that's illegal. I mean, that's grounds for, well, as far as council members, are we saying they're involved with concern? Or are we just talking about the organization itself is doing things that's improper?
No, for one.
Or is that considered to be illegal?
No member of council should be involved in housing authority activity, for the simple reason that they're not part of the entity, and therefore it's not city's business. However, you know, if you have an individual that is involved in discussions and negotiations and actively know with this, then that person there is definitely acting outside his capacity.
Well, would the council allow this? Or are you saying that representative who's acting as a spokesperson for the city should be given the authority by council to do it, and then that spokesperson should be going back to council to report their findings or decision making? Can they do? Are they doing that? Is that what you're thinking?
That's the part of our government that is broke. You know, the problem we have here in our city is that we have a one form of government, and it's being run in another form of government manner, and it causes confusion. And it's up to the council, and that's something that council has to understand. For new members who don't understand your form of government, they need to stop, look, listen, and go and read.
Mm-hmm.
But council has the authority to make decisions for the city. Now, when it comes to routine day-to-day operations, the city manager does that. But if it's anything that is not routine and day-to-day, the council should be informed, so that if the council need to give direction, then they give direction. If they need to give a directive to the manager, they do. If they have to instruct him to do something, they can. And the council means the council. The council has to be separate from manager. You can't have the mayor wanting to sit in trying to do the manager's job. The manager has to work as the person who is in charge of running the city. The staff. You can't have somebody telling staff members to do things or asking staff members to do things without going through the city manager. It only causes confusion. It causes the city manager to have actions or things going on within the city that he doesn't know about. So, but it's up to council to understand that the council is a body. You know, it's a body, and it only operates when it has its parts. Okay, one member on council is not council, and nobody can speak for that council. Nobody. That council has to be a body. And normally the only way that body can make a decision, it has to have at least 5 members. So our government, no one has more authority than no one else that's on council, to include the mayor. Our form of government has 9 equal representatives of the people. No council members should know or deal with any issues whereby there's city business being conducted and decisions are going to be made unless it's acting as a body. And once again, that's a quorum of 5 individual members. Once you get 5 members, you are now a functioning body. You are alert and living. As long as you don't have 5, that council is dead.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to hold the show up, but one last thing, maybe to my thinking. Now, if all this, as you have indicated, is fact, why isn't it something that maybe our Justice Department or Mr. Corey Crenshaw, who said that they want to root out corruption in Beaumont and Port Arthur, does this not rise to the occasion of an investigation, or is it that the citizens have to get their attention and get these folks to look at this from a position that, okay, the council member's not going to do anything. Maybe we as citizens should take this to another level of authority, maybe above the district attorney did. If it looks like the district attorney is not making any headway in curbing these types of activities. And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
All righty. Thank you for calling, Colin. And once again, in answer to that, as a member of council serving 2 years and understanding some of the actions that have been taken by some of the elected officials and some of the things that have been done by staff, it's no doubt that eventually, I think there's going to be actions taken. Sometimes the judicial system appears not to be there, or someone said they ain't doing, but with the judicial system that you now have in place, you find that most cases that they deal with on a level of maybe public corruption among city officials, you'll find that those cases are normally not brought to surface until they have thoroughly investigated and gotten everything correct. You notice most of the time frame would be from 1 to 2 years that these things were investigated. 2 governors in the state of Utah have been charged with bribery. 2 former governors, meaning these 2 governors have served one then the other one, and both of them were now out of office, and it was 2 years later, and now both of them were getting indicted. So whenever there are things that are being done where you violate your oath of office, you conduct yourself dishonestly, or you are a person who thinks that you can get away, it may appear that way, but in the end, you'll find that most time, justice is served. So I don't think that these things are going unnoticed, and I don't think that they are forgotten. But I know that this justice system we have now, they take a lot of time before they go public with a case, because for one thing, I can understand that. When you're talking about elected and public officials, you don't want to go out and charge an official and then turn around and say, oh, well, I'm sorry, we thought. That is not the case. You got to be very careful. It takes time. Yes, caller, you on the air.
Well, good morning, sir, and I just wanted to reiterate your earlier statement, your earlier question, which we should all take time to consider, which is why would a commercial entity be interested in buying a property that there seems to be, by its designation, no visible means by which they can make a profit. And it should be one of those questions that just ruminates and ferments in the brain. What's going on with this? Because on the surface, it doesn't appear to make sense.
Well, to answer your question, HC, you know, it is definitely underhanded dealings, and it has no consideration for citizens, especially those located along the fence line, and it was contrary to what had been told to citizens and council. You know, the housing authority made it clear that they were seeking money from the federal government to abolish Carver Terrace and enough money to build another housing complex so that they could relocate those individuals from Carver Terrace to that new location. That's what they kept saying. And Carver Terrace will be a green space. Now, in conjunction with that, that's why the city went to the point whereby the city was trying to work with residents to provide affordable housing for them if they live from Foley to Martin Luther King, which is 82. They want to move all of the residents out there along that all the way to 7th Street so that they can make that a green space from 7th Street all the way back to Gulfway Drive, which in turn would have moved all of the residents right across the highway from Valero. It would have moved them back somewhat. So it would have created a little more space. And that was the plan, not only on the housing authority plan, but it's also part of our plan. And that's why the city was all for it, and that's why we were appreciative of what they were doing. But the fact of the matter that they were trying to sell this property, and not only were they trying to sell it, they were trying to sell it without the restriction that it remained a green space. And when the company that made the bid found out that they won't be able to use this, they withdrew the bid.
Well, that would make sense.
Right. Well, and also what came out of all of this was the fact that the environmentalist, the environmental person that the housing authority said was creating a significant impact on the citizens, on the city and the Carver Terrace and the Edison Square deal. This individual replied and stated to the fact that, why would you sell property for less than the market value price?
Again, another question that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it went farther than that because the person went along and said, you know, you didn't even have in the contract that this was supposed to remain vacant. So, you know, it's that housing authority. You know, I don't know who makes decisions, who does the business, but faced with the investigation that they're under and turn around and do this, I truly believe now it's time for the Justice Department to come down and start putting somebody in handcuffs, because this cannot be done in any way or fashion. Tell me it's for the good of the housing authority. It cannot be for the good of the housing authority.
Well,
Because,
whether or not it's for the good of the community is another question. I do say this much, that the statement about the relocation and having land vacant being a negative impact on the city, to be sure, it's going to have a negative financial impact on some part of the city, which is true. But being able to cut through the camouflage to the real meat of the issue is what we all have to do. And because the reality of life is these sort of things happen on a regular basis. We have to be awake and aware that this is how the ball rolls. And we need to be up to snuff to, if something doesn't pass the sniff test, to say something. So there's a lot that's going on there, and certainly organizations are out of synchronization with each other. And there appears to be something that is certainly not on the level going on with this whole situation.
well, not only that, but the other portion that is how it goes to the council. It doesn't go to the council in the magnitude of what it really is, and that's something that the council needs to be more proactive of. And having new council members, they're like trying to find out what's going on, what's the feel. Then you have council members who are there looking at everything. Then there are council members who know what is going on. They know why these things are being done. And they're the ones that trying to say it's okay. So until we get council people who will look at all aspects of business that come before them without having to rely on the next person, we're going to continue to get people to come before the council and say one thing and then leave, say don't worry about them. They won't do nothing. Our council has some authority in this city, and it's time that people start being accountable. That housing authority does not come under the city. However, it's a federal government entity and state government entity. Therefore, this city can go to the state and let them know what's going on with this housing authority here in our city. However, they're not going to get that point if you have people within our elected official on council running interference and protecting this kind of behavior.
Well, this all comes around to the other point you made at the very beginning of the show. And so I will leave with this, which is that in terms of the accountability of we the citizens and our rights and our obligation to vote. And I hear this, but I will go with this. If you buy a refrigerator, if you buy a stove, if you buy a small appliance, you buy a microwave, you buy a cell phone, you buy something and it's not working, then what do? You go and you get another one. So this business about if you vote and it doesn't work out like you want, then you stop voting, it's not how you function in the rest of your life. And so if you apply the common sense that you apply to other things you do in life to voting, then you can come out with the sort of results that you want if you're persistent and if people don't work as they should, replace them.
And with that, I thank you very much for your call, HC, and you have a wonderful week.
Oh, and yourself.
All right.
God bless.
All right. And in closing, I would like to go back to the way we opened, and that's talking about the voting. And as okay, caller.
One more thing. I heard mention about Councilman Williamson's concern about a forensic audit. What is your take on a forensic audit? I mean, what is it going to do? What is it going to prove? It's gonna cost the city a lot of money to have to do this and come up with nothing again. Well, what's your take on the forensic audit I see that's on the council agenda?
Okay, I'm in favor of forensic audit, and it is only for the purpose of council really getting a firm understanding on one, are we managing and dispersing our funds properly? Are we doing our bids and all this stuff properly? Are people being hired in accordance with the city's hiring practice? So, you know, there are areas whereby someone needs to go in and take a real close look. I think it's important for two reasons. One is that we really need to get a handle and understand where we are financially as a city, and how our employment is gone. That seems to be a big years. And a forensic audit is not an audit because you feel someone is crooked or you feel someone is doing illegal. The forensic audit is done mostly to identify if you have problems, where are the problems, and make you better than what you are. When people get to where they reject auditing or don't want auditing, you make people wonder, why are you afraid for somebody to look into your books? Because any person that does anything is not perfect. We all make mistakes. However, if you make mistakes knowingly, then yes, you have a problem. But people who do the right thing for the right reasons and understanding that auditing is to find out where you are, if everything is good, what you need to do to get better, and to help you, then it should be something you welcome. So, in answer to the question in a nutshell, if anybody opposes audit, forensic audit, they have something to hide. And that is the more reason to do it. If someone says, yeah, come on and look at the book, they tell you right then, hey, I know I'm doing a good job now. If you find something wrong, it ain't like I'm doing it intentionally. Come on and look at it. Hey, make me better. But, oh, well, we don't need, no. You don't need to hide nothing from the citizens. And with that, we're going to make sure that we get out to the polls. It starts there, people. It doesn't start here on this show. It doesn't start with someone coming before your council. It doesn't start with council members doing things not in best interest. Council members standing up for you. It doesn't start there. Where it starts is at the poll with who you put in that position. So, it starts at the poll. This election tomorrow is not city. But I can promise you, the people that are elected tomorrow do have an impact on your life. So, you need to get out and vote. You need to vote. You need to get out. We need to get out and vote so that we can vote for people we want in office. Because the way the system has gone is there's only X amount of people who vote every year. So what people do now, they don't worry about trying to get there. They get these lists of people who vote. And that's who they call. So if they call in just these people, and they have enough of these people to support them, and this person is supporting them only because this person is going to take care of their agendas, guess what? You lose again. So, get out. Vote. I cannot impress upon you. At least say I voted for or I voted against. Don't say I don't like. Don't like ain't got nothing to do with it. It's who we vote for. And with that, I want to wish all of you a good week. And you've been listening to The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. And it's your city. Have a lovely week. And I'm serious. Get out to vote, and also grab your friends and take them with you who have not voted. Let's prove everybody wrong. Let's get out and do it till everyone is satisfied.